But as we mentioned, the breaking news, Hillary Clinton spent several hours answering questions from members of the House Oversight Committee about the Jeffrey Epstein files. The former First Lady, Senator, and Secretary of State agreed to speak in that closed-door session after considerable pressure. It was a warm-up act, essentially, for the main event tomorrow, a similar appearance by her husband, former President Bill Clinton, who had more tangible ties to the late financier and sexual offender. Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram is in Chappaqua, New York tonight with the latest. Good evening, Chad.
Brett, good evening. Hillary Clinton just came out a couple of moments ago. She said she will not talk to the committee again. She said that she found most of the questioning to be repetitive. She said she was even asked about Pizzagate. Now, the Clintons, they dodged subpoenas for months. They only agreed to testify after the committee voted to hold them in contempt of Congress. Now, Democrats believe that Bill Clinton's appearance could compel the committee to call President Trump.
This committee has now set a new precedent about talking to presidents and former presidents. And we're demanding immediately that we ask President Trump to testify in front of our committee.
Now, the committee questioned how Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell used the connections to hide illegal activities Jeffrey Epstein donated to the Clinton Foundation. In a statement, Hillary Clinton said, quote, "I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein." The former Secretary of State said she had nothing to add. Democrats question why the committee focused on her.
The Democrats voted to subpoena the Clintons. The Democrats voted with the Republicans to hold the Clintons in contempt. So the Democrats have just as many questions for the Clintons as the Republicans. So this isn't a partisan witch hunt.
Questions paused when Republican Lauren Boebert leaked a photo of the former First Lady in the deposition.
I really admired her blue suit, so I wanted to capture that for everyone.
Why did you send the picture? Why did you send the picture?
Why not?
Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is mentioned in the files. Lutnick told lawmakers he did not have a relationship with Epstein, but he visited Epstein's island with his family. Republicans are considering a summons for Lutnick.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
Now, as I said, Hillary Clinton came out and talked to reporters for about 5 minutes. She was in the hearing room here for about 6 hours. She came at 11 o'clock. We mentioned there were those brief pauses, and here's what she said when she came out and talked to the press.
It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself.
Now, the marquee event is tomorrow with former President Clinton, and the committee will release videos of both depositions in a few days. Brett, back to you.
Okay, Chad Pergram live in Chappaqua. Chad, thanks. We'll have more on this with the panel later on.
Based on what I knew, and what I knew is what I said in my statement this morning. I never met Jeffrey Epstein, never had any connection or communication with him. I knew Ghislaine Maxwell casually as an acquaintance, but whatever they asked me, I did my very best to respond. It was disappointing that they refused to hold a public hearing, so I wouldn't have to be out here characterizing it for you. You could have seen it for yourself. We had asked for that. We think it would have been better for the committee and its efforts to gather whatever information they are seeking. We had a bit of a challenge in the beginning because we had agreed upon rules based on the fact it was going to be a closed hearing at their demand. And one of the members violated that rule, which was very upsetting because it suggested that they might violate other of our agreements. So we had to cease the hearing for a period of time until we could get assurances that no rules would be broken going forward. And we returned to answer questions repetitively, literally over and over again. I don't know how many times I had to say I did not know Jeffrey Epstein. I never went to his island. I never went to his homes. I never went to his offices. So it's on the record numerous times. It then got, at the end, quite unusual because I started being asked about UFOs and a series of questions about Pizzagate, one of the most vile, bogus conspiracy theories that was propagated on the internet, that was serving as the basis of a member's questions to me. So I can only say that the best exchange that I had came at the very end, when, contrary to every other deposition they have taken, no Republican member asked any questions about Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell to anyone else they have deposed. And in fact, the Republican members didn't even show up for the deposition of Les Wexner. And when I said that, I had to point out that the only questions that any Republican member asked of any of the people they deposed was of former Attorney General Bill Barr, when Chairman Comer asked him about the allegations, in his view, about Russia's involvement in my election in 2016. So at the very end of this hearing, after I made that point, I want to commend Chairman Comer for raising a series of significant questions that I responded to about the nature of the investigation and the areas that I thought should be explored. So I appreciated that. I want to see the truth come out. So that was a reassuring way to end a very long, repetitive deposition.
Madam Secretary, you spoke in your opening remarks about how heartbroken you have been for the Epstein survivors as these files have come out. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you have processed and reacted to the fact that the former president, your husband, Bill Clinton, is referencing the Epstein files numerous times, including in some photos featuring women? And how have you been personally preparing for the deposition that is coming tomorrow? Are you 100% confident that there isn't anything that the former president knows about Epstein's crimes?
I am, and I think the chronology of the connection that he had with Epstein ended several years before anything about Epstein's criminal activities came to light, and that he was charged and sadly given a sweetheart deal, which, as I said in my statement, had that not happened, perhaps his predatory behavior could have been stopped earlier. But I think it is fair to say that the vast majority of people who had contact with him before his criminal pleas in 2008 were like most people. They did not know what he was doing. And I think that that is exactly what my husband will testify to tomorrow.
Madam Secretary, do you believe this was a fair hearing? And do you still want to testify publicly, even though you gave this deposition?
Well, I'm not going to do it again. They had a chance to do it in public, and I wish they had done it in public. And I think they're making the wrong decision, avoiding doing it in public. I thought it was very repetitive. I thought that they asked literally the same questions over and over again, which didn't seem to me to be very productive. And then, as I said, toward the end, there were other questions that were totally off subject. So if they are going to fulfill their responsibilities to literally investigate the investigations, which is what they originally said was the scope of their work, I think they could have spent the day more productively.
Madam Secretary, can I ask? James Matthews from Sky News. Can I ask, why was Ghislaine Maxwell invited to the daughter of Chelsea Clinton's wedding in 2010? She'd already been mentioned in a civil lawsuit by Virginia Giuffre before that. Jeffrey Epstein had already been convicted before that.
She came as the +1, the guest of someone who was invited.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
All right, so after, oh wait, here she's coming back.
Video will be out. I don't know when the transcript will be out. We've asked that they be out as quickly as possible, and then you can see everything. Thank you.
And we are going to have more on that Olympic hockey team story that you just mentioned. Thanks, you guys. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. And this is the story where we begin today. Attorney Josh Ritter live at the landmark social media trial, where the young woman who is the impetus for this lawsuit is now on the stand testifying that social media had a very negative impact on her mental health. This is a huge case with a lot of implications, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is finally answering questions after many requests about Jeffrey Epstein. Now, these questions are being posed at this hour by the House Oversight Committee, and they're behind closed doors. The agreed-to area is the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center, which is near Hillary Clinton's New York home. So the big day, perhaps the bigger day, will be tomorrow when former President Bill Clinton will testify. Both Clintons postponed these appearances several times before finally agreeing that they would come and answer questions today and tomorrow. Now, the committee says that they will eventually release the video of these recorded depositions. Hillary Clinton has testified about Epstein and his convicted partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, that, quote, she had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein, she says. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that. And we're getting a look inside the deposition room. Podcaster Benny Johnson did post this photo that he got from Republican Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert on the Oversight Committee. That wasn't supposed to happen, and that provoked a pause in the testimony. So the lawmakers from both parties that are on hand for this committee hearing today for questioning. Watch this.
No one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process, but we have a lot of questions.
We have said from day one that we want to talk to former President Bill Clinton. And the other person we want to talk to is current President Donald Trump.
So with that, the former House Oversight Committee Chairman, Jason Chaffetz, watching all of this play out, Fox News contributor on the scene in Chappaqua. Also joining me, Doug Schoen, pollster and former Clinton advisor. Good to have both of you with us. Jason, you know, earlier we heard, great to have you, gentlemen. We heard from Chairman Comer. He said we're finally getting accountability. Do you think that's true?
It's on the path to getting accountability. I mean, they've been trying to get the Clintons to come in since October, having to subpoena them and whatnot. This is another piece in that puzzle. It's not the concluding piece by any means. There's a lot more to learn. How did the money flow? What was the political influence? Did they witness any trafficking? Those types of things. This is a very salacious, disturbing story, and they're part of it. Unfortunately, that's the big question that the committee is asking.
Yeah, you know, Doug, the thing that strikes me over and over as I watch all of this and we see this release of files that have come out over the last couple of months is what a shame it is that Jeffrey Epstein was given the space and time to kill himself in that prison, because he is the person at the center of this. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison for the crimes that she was convicted of in a court of law. And here's a quote I thought was interesting that I wanted to read to you from the New York Times today.
Sure.
Sticking up for Hillary Clinton, saying that Mrs. Clinton's appearance is notable for different reasons. It will act as a reminder that even after serving 8 years in the Senate, 4 years as Secretary of State, and running for president twice, Mrs. Clinton is still stuck in the awkward position of answering for her husband. What do you think about that, Doug?
Well, I think there's probably a lot of truth to that, Martha, largely because I don't think anyone has been able to contradict what Secretary Clinton said, that she never knew Epstein, never met Epstein, never had anything to do with Epstein. Sadly, Bill Clinton did. He flew on his plane. There were allegations that still need to be demonstrated that Epstein was involved in the instigation and starting with Ghislaine Maxwell of the Clinton Global Initiative. And I think those are fair questions that a bipartisan group of House members both agreed required answers under oath from both Clintons. So, yes, Hillary is unfortunately fallen victim to the decisions and choices Bill Clinton made about the people he associated with.
Yeah, back to you, Jason. You know, in terms of oversight, obviously their ability to bring accountability is limited, really. I mean, they can't convict anyone. They can present something to the DOJ if they come up with something in hopes that maybe they will follow through on this. But, you know, I guess what is the final point here in all of this is the question.
Yeah, the Oversight Committee, members of Congress, they're not given handcuffs. Believe me, there were plenty of times where I wish, as chairman, I could have used some handcuffs, but you can only make that referral. But sunlight is the best disinfectant. It's our system of government. It's the best one we have. And forcing people to come testify, I hardly think that Hillary Clinton is a quote-unquote victim in all this. The real victims were on that island and part of a scheme that was widespread, well above the Clintons. I'm not suggesting that they were the scheme, but I'm saying there are so many people that are trafficked, that human trafficking and sexual exploitation, particularly of young women and young boys as well, it's pervasive. It's far too pervasive. And you've got to be able to figure out how to put together legislation, hold people accountable, because as you mentioned, Martha, Jeffrey Epstein probably should have been prosecuted, 10, 15 years ago. There was probably enough evidence back then. How is it that it was covered up for so long?
Yeah, it's a great question. And the original process in Florida, under which he got a prostitution with a minor charge when there were much larger charges that were part of that case, is also one of the big questions here. But thanks to reporting of the Miami Herald, this continues to open up. And you're right. The victims here are these young women, many of them. And there's just one last thing I want to say here. There's a reason why you see posters all over every airport you go through, giving people a phone number to call if they're being trafficked, if they're being brought through that airport with someone who they don't want to be with and are being forced to be with. There's a reason for that. And so hopefully some good comes from this in terms of enlightening everybody on how horrific the trafficking situation is. Thanks to both of you, Jason Chaffetz, Doug Schoen.
Thank you.
Hope to see you again soon.
Good afternoon, and live from Texas, this is the Will Cain Show. Epstein, again. Everyone wants the files. Everyone wants the names. Everyone wants the answers. Left, right, online, on Capitol Hill. And today, Hillary Clinton is back in the headlines. Secretary Clinton sat for a closed-door deposition in Chappaqua, New York. Tomorrow, it's former President Bill Clinton. In her opening statement, Hillary Clinton said, "I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices." Now, Hillary may not, but Bill Clinton certainly did. There are flight logs. There are photos, events. As for Ghislaine Maxwell, Hillary Clinton says she only met her a few times. Apparently, one of those times included her daughter Chelsea Clinton's wedding. There's Ghislaine with a prized aisle seat right there next to Chelsea. The New York Times calls this the latest Stand By Your Man moment. And yes, we have seen this before. We've seen this movie. Hillary Clinton is, in fact, starting to sound like Tammy Wynette. Cut to 34 years later. She could be back on that couch, standing by her man. But here's what's more interesting than Hillary, the sudden moral awakening of the left. You saw pins at the State of the Union Release the files in all caps posted under every social media post. Someone right now on the internet is listening to this show and typing pedoprotector online. But weirdly, for 4 years, Democrats controlled the White House, the Senate, the House, the Department of Justice. Merrick Garland was the Attorney General. They controlled everything. They had the file cabinet, and they weren't banging on the file cabinet. They had no interest in opening the files. No hearings, no daily demands, no urgency, no interest from politicians or social media prosecutors. Now, suddenly, it's a 5-alarm fire. And what changed? Not the victims, certainly not the truth. It's the target. Let's be clear. There is a there with Jeffrey Epstein. It is, I think, primarily a story about power. But what we're watching right now isn't a moral crusade. It is the flavor of the month to try to take down President Donald Trump. We're told Donald Trump's name appears more than 30,000 times in the files. Now, that sounds damning until you ask a simple question. What does that mean to be mentioned in the Epstein files? These files include anonymous tips, unvetted calls, secondhand accusations. Bobo the clown could call into an anonymous tip line and say he heard someone say something somewhere about Trump and Epstein. But instead of making that call, Bobo the clown has read them into the record at Congress. I'm talking about Congressman Ted Lieu.
Here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop the limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness.
Witness, documents, it all sounds so official, but let's slow this down. A limo driver somewhere in the middle of America once had a passenger who said Donald Trump raped her. He says that Donald Trump was in his limo and was talking on the phone to someone named Jeffrey. This same tipster, by the way, also claimed Hillary Clinton was linked to the Oklahoma City bombing. Obviously reliable, an incredibly credible witness. No, obviously deranged, but that's good enough for Ted Lieu to smear into the congressional record. And this is what passes for oversight, reading anonymous tip line rumors like they're the courtroom evidence. Now, here's the real test. If tomorrow it were confirmed beyond all doubt that Donald Trump had zero criminal ties to Epstein, what would happen next? Do the pen stays on at the State of the Union? Do the all-cap posts continue on X? Or does this story vanish, just like last month's outrage? We know the answer. There's no real concern for the victims. There's no real interest in Epstein's backstory. There's no pursuit of the truth. How do I know? A few years ago, the New York Times ran this headline: pedophilia, a disorder, not a crime. You see, then, after, by the way, Jeffrey Epstein had already been busted in Florida, pedophilia was being minimized. Now it's a Trojan horse to attack Donald Trump. It's Russiagate. Now, to be clear, we deserve the truth on Epstein. Nothing about him makes sense. Not his wealth, not his trail of victims, not his high-powered relationships, including Bill Clinton, including Bill Gates, all of them. I just don't believe that the people who weren't interested yesterday and won't be interested tomorrow, and who scream Epstein when Kash Patel slams a beer with the U.S. Olympic hockey team, will be the people that guide us to the truth.
Hillary Clinton testifying right now in a closed-door deposition with the House Oversight Committee in its investigation into convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. In her opening statements, Clinton says she has no recollection of meeting Epstein or his accomplice, Ms. Maxwell. Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram is live outside that venue right now where this deposition is being held. So, Chad, what are the details coming from this right now?
Sandra, good afternoon. Well, Hillary Clinton, she's been defiant. A spokeswoman said before she went in that she hopes that members of the Oversight Committee focuses on the Epstein investigation. You know, the Clintons, both Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, they have dodged these subpoenas for months. These subpoenas were issued last summer, but they only agreed to appear once the House Oversight Committee voted to hold them in contempt of Congress. Here is James Comer, the chairman of the committee.
The Democrats voted to subpoena the Clintons. The Democrats voted with the Republicans to hold the Clintons in contempt. So the Democrats have just as many questions for the Clintons as the Republicans.
Now, Hillary Clinton is willing to testify, but she questions why she's here. The former Secretary of State says, quote, "I had no idea about their criminal activities. I do not recall ever encountering Mr. Epstein. I never flew on his plane or visited his island, homes, or offices. I have nothing to add to that." Democrats say focus on the Clintons is a distraction.
The Department of Justice continues to lead a White House cover-up. New files that were just discovered in the last couple days of a survivor that has made serious accusations and allegations against not just Jeffrey Epstein, but also against President Trump.
And even though the focus is on the Clintons today, some Republicans are turning their attention to Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
It'll be on my list, and I have an email I printed off for Hillary to ask about Howard Lutnick today.
Now, Bill Clinton appears tomorrow. He met and traveled with Jeffrey Epstein, but Democrats have an ulterior motive with bringing in President Clinton. They think that if they bring in President Clinton, that will help establish a precedent, maybe to bring in President Trump if they win control of the House after the midterms. Guys?
All right, Chad Pergram live there in Chappaqua for us. Chad, thank you. John?
Let's take a live look now. That is the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center, about an hour's drive north of New York City on the left side of your screen. Obviously, that's former First Lady and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And she is now sitting for a history-making closed-door deposition in the House Oversight investigation of pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Her husband will be in the hot seat tomorrow, Bill Clinton. And some of the questions we're told to expect include the circumstances surrounding Epstein's death and how he and Ghislaine Maxwell built ties with some of the most powerful figures in the world. Both depositions, Hillary and Bill Clinton's, will be under oath, transcribed and taped, videotaped. Here's House Oversight Chairman James Comer.
The American people have a lot of questions. To my knowledge, the Clintons haven't answered very many, if any, questions about their knowledge or involvement with Epstein and Maxwell. Again, no one's accusing at this moment the Clintons of any wrongdoing. They're going to have due process, but we have a lot of questions.
Chief Congressional Correspondent Chad Pergram is in Chappaqua. Chad.
Harris, good morning. Well, Chappaqua is the center of the Epstein controversy today because the Clintons live here. They live just about a mile over this ridge. James Comer, the chairman of the Oversight Committee, he is expecting a long deposition with Hillary Clinton today. As you say, the deposition just started a couple of moments ago. We just got a statement from Hillary Clinton, and she indicated that she said this is a scandal that is a tragedy and worth investigating, but she says she doesn't know much about it. However, James Comer, he teased another big name today who he may request for an interview, and that is the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick.
That's very possible, and I think I think it's a good possibility that his name will arise in some questioning today.
It'll be on my list, and I have an email I printed off for Hillary to ask about Howard Lutnick today.
Hillary Clinton and the former president dodged subpoenas for months. The committee initially summoned them last summer. Then they skipped depositions in the fall, before Christmas and last month. Hillary Clinton claims she's willing to testify despite the cat and mouse.
I've called for, many, many years for everything to be put out there so people can not only see what is in them, but also, if appropriate, hold people accountable. We'll see what happens.
A Clinton spokesperson says they hope Republicans actually ask about Epstein. There are photos of President Clinton with Epstein. They also traveled together. No one has accused the Clintons of wrongdoing. Members from both sides question why the committee is hearing from Hillary Clinton. Republicans are not fans of the Clintons, but they question the value of the exercise.
I'm not expecting a whole lot. There's a reason neither one of them are in prison. I don't know why the heck we didn't bring them here. If you or I got in trouble, guess what? We'd be here or we'd be in chains and they'd be dragging us in. And having them up in Chappaqua to me is an insult to the public.
Now, Hillary Clinton today, Bill Clinton tomorrow, and Democrats, they kind of like hearing from former President Clinton. The reason is they hope that this will enable them to establish a precedent to bring in President Trump. The idea that you don't have presidents in for depositions or hearings very often, but the idea if they win control of the House of Representatives in the fall midterms, maybe they can bring in President Trump sometime next year. Harris?
Yeah, big difference, though, because this is a former president who's being deposed and filmed and all those things tomorrow. Very different situation. Chad Pergram, thank you very much.
So this morning, Hillary Clinton is in the hot seat as she's scheduled to sit for a closed-door deposition in the House probe of Jeffrey Epstein. Tomorrow is Bill Clinton's turn. He's the first former president ever compelled to testify in a congressional investigation against his will, as they risk being held in contempt if they don't cooperate. Fox News contributor and best-selling author of Rage in the Republic, Jonathan Turley, joins us now. I guess, Jonathan, from a legal perspective, if you could boil down the inquiry here from the House, what are they looking to get from the Clintons on record?
Well, Lawrence, it's a great question. The first thing is they're trying to get the Clintons on record. I mean, the fact is that the Clintons stood in open defiance of congressional subpoenas. They just didn't show up, and they didn't have any real legal reason for it other than we don't want to do it. And what happened was that Democrats joined Republicans and moved to hold both of them in contempt. And right before that vote, the Clintons finally shrugged and said, well, okay. And so now we're going to have these depositions. Obviously, most attention is with Bill Clinton, who was on this plane of Epstein at least 16 times. There's some very embarrassing photos that have come out in these files. But today, Hillary Clinton will face some equally difficult questions when it comes to their global initiative and foundation. Epstein seems to have played a role in helping the Clintons in that area. And also, Hillary Clinton had a relationship with Maxwell. And while both of them have tried to distance themselves as all of these files came out, Maxwell was invited to her daughter's wedding. So this was not a arm's length relationship.
I guess, Professor, and you've been on the criminal defense side of this, the Justice Department job is to charge people. Not release things that are embarrassing to people. And so I'm struggling to understand, if there is such damning information, why not charge people instead of releasing dossiers?
You know, Lawrence, that is a very good question, and I've written about this, that I am uncomfortable with the degree to which grand jury material has been released. You have hundreds of people who have been swooped up because they're mentioned in these files. There's a reason why we have grand jury secrecy. There's a reason why we have investigation files that are not made public, because you sort of vacuum up a huge amount of stuff, and it can create this public trial without a real chance to defend yourself in court. The Clintons have not been charged. They've not been, the committee is not accusing them of criminal conduct. But they are going to be looking at how Epstein did what he did for so long. He had very powerful friends, and he was able to escape serious repercussions for much of this period. And they're going to ask the Clintons about that, when they knew about these allegations, what they did about it, and also how they may have used Epstein's connections for their own benefit.
So with the 30 seconds I have left, Professor, do you think the issue with the Epstein files is statute of limitations. What is preventing? Is there a lack of evidence why they haven't charged people? Because, I just worry about the system of government that is okay with releasing information without the charges. Is it just a precedent thing going on right here where they don't have enough?
That's exactly right, Lawrence. And if you take Bill Clinton as a good example, you've got these pictures and hot tubs and these many flights records showing him with Epstein, but there's no direct evidence that he was involved with any of these underage girls, and that's the lack of evidence that stopped a lot of investigators.
Copy that. Professor, thank you so much for all that knowledge.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.